the inner transformation that should take place, as it was rightly said over here. Christmas is telling us the story of salvation, and that salvation is to experience in the hearts and minds of each people. And therefore, the inner transformation should take place when we come together for the community celebration of Christmas. Here in this Christmas, we are speaking about God's intervention in history. And this is very, very important. God's intervention in history. He is breaking history to a new level of life. In fact, He is making history. We read from the scriptures that the promises of God were all fulfilled at the birth of Jesus the Christ. And the way of salvation is opened, thereby making a turn to the historical events that were taking place in the earlier days. When we come for the Christmas celebration, let us remember that it is not simply God acting in history, but God is calling His creation to participate in the redemptive act of God. And here we have so many characters involved in the God's redemptive act. Joseph and Mary, as we see in the scriptures, they are the two key persons involved in God entering into history. Remember, when you look into the life of Joseph and Mary, both of them were puzzled. Both of them were puzzled. Human reason was not adequate either for Joseph or for Mary to understand what is happening in their lives. Human reason was not adequate. Joseph was puzzled when we read in the scriptures that he was a very righteous person. He understood the problem. He understood the difficulty in facing the community in which he is living. He was facing a problem in answering the questions of the scribes and the Pharisees of his day. He was a respecter of persons, and therefore he was not intending anything bad in the life of Mary. He secretly wanted to divorce her so that nothing will happen to Mary. He was religious in the sense that he was willing to obey God. That's why when God enabled him to understand through a dream that it is the will and purpose of God that is taking place in the life of Mary, that he was ready to accept it. See, he obeyed God. He showed a sense of maturity, though he was a young person. Young person in the sense he was only at the marriageable age. But at that time, when he had to face lots of tensions and struggles in his life, he made a decision by which he stood, and a decision by which he obeyed God's will completely. He showed responsibility. How? He showed responsibility in the fact that he accepted Mary, and he took all the pain and struggle to take her to Bethlehem, as we heard from the scriptures now. To take Mary to Bethlehem was not a single day's journey. In those days, to take her to Bethlehem was a number of days involved in that journey together. And we understand that Mary was carrying the baby. It was almost time for her to deliver the baby. And it was at that time, that crucial time, that Joseph is taking all the pain and risk in carrying her, in taking her to Bethlehem to obey the orders. And therefore he was also willing to take the risk, and he had to pay the price for it. What do you understand when I say that Joseph had to pay the price for it? It's much beyond our comprehension, much beyond our reasoning. We all live in a world today where the economic recession is a reality. And I am sure that some of you who are here, or some of you who are members of this parish, are without job today. Here, Joseph is willfully closing his workshop for the purpose of taking Mary to Bethlehem, not knowing when he will be able to come back to his workshop to do the work and to earn his living. And we know the whole incident when Joseph took Mary to Bethlehem. The baby Jesus was born, but then, because of Herod's order to kill all the boys below the age of 12, Joseph and Mary had to carry that child way down to Egypt. And they had to stay there till this king died. And then when God asked him to come back, he came to Galilee in some place, and then only he went to Nazareth. Can you count the number of days when he closed his workshop? Can you count the number of days when he had no other income but whatever that was there with him, or what God provided, or the hospitality that they received from other people? To take the risk, to count the cost, these were very, very dear as far as Joseph was concerned. Now look at Mary. She had to pay the highest price. Why? She was asked to give her own life. She was asked to give her own life. It's not a question of accepting another person. It's a question of giving one's own life, one's own future. She was called to obey God when God said there is God acting in history, and for that you are wanted. And can you think of all the mothers will be able to understand this when I say that without Mary knowing her husband, a child was growing in her womb. Her flesh is becoming flesh without knowing who the male partner is. The blood is giving out life so that a baby is forming in her womb, always not knowing who the father of the child is. Mary will be able to tell you who her husband is, but Mary will not be able to tell you who the father of the child is. Not knowing all these things, when all this remained as a mystery, Mary was willing to commit her life totally, without any condition. At the pain and risk that she had to take, she was committing herself so that the will of God was carried out in her life.